Okay, well, I think we are in a space where we can go ahead and start. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erin Taylor. I'm the WACCT Executive Director, and I'm happy to be hosting this opportunity here today to share with you the latest and greatest for everything that's going on with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership. And we have a very special guest here today. We have Executive Director Lauren Schoenfeld with us. Lauren came on board, Lauren, almost 2 years ago now with
It'll be 2 years and 2 days.
Okay, I was pretty right on. Good.
Yeah.
Lauren came on very recently, but it seems like you've been with us forever, Lauren, in this space, because since you got here, I think it's just been, it's really turned WIP into what we all thought it could be. And I think we just needed the direction and someone to be the force to get us there. So with that, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit. Who we have on it's not a true webinar. This is just designed as a regular Zoom. But we have a lot of trustees with us. We have some presidents. I know we have some staff at the colleges. It just kind of depends on who is available and interested. We are recording it, so we'll share this out, of course, with whatever resources you want to give us, and we can share with folks as well afterwards. So I'll turn it over to you. We've got about an hour together. So thank you, everyone. If you want to ask a question, throw it into the chat or raise your hand on your screen. I'll do my best to try and manage that to help assist Lauren as she's talking. But we are very open. I think, Lauren, I think you appreciate things when they're just really casual, and I want to make sure everyone's questions are answered. And I think, I know you can accommodate that. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm just really excited with the opportunity to be able to give everybody an update about what's going on with WIP. I feel like we have come so far in 2 years. We've had a ton of successes. I'm going to highlight some of those successes, which have actually, a lot of them have been captured by our marketing team in video. And so I'm going to show you where some of those resources are as well. We'll talk a little bit about the return on investment report that was just put forward, about a month ago, a little less than a month ago. And then we also just got our phase 2 report hot off the presses. I actually just got a couple printed copies yesterday in the mail. And so we've got a lot of great new information. So I really am looking forward to it. We're going to start with a video that President Tyndall, and he kind of outlines how he feels about the importance of WIP and working together in the collaborations. I hope that, Erin, let me know if you can't hear this and we can figure that out.
The Wyoming Innovation Partnership has made it really clear to so many people that community colleges and the university are about economic development. You have to jump into the water, you have to try to swim, you try to figure things out. And with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, it's very much project-based. We could have studied this to death. We've heard diversification said on different avenues. Let's dig in, start meeting these needs by doing kind of projects that address these. And we learn along the way. And we have also learned, and we all know this, that if you really want to make a big impact in this world, you partner. When you partner, you leverage and go so much further. And so the fact that this is an innovation partnership kind of mandates us to think, okay, what are the partners involved with this? How can I leverage this to make this bigger? How can I push this concept out? How can I be stronger by partnering with the right people? And this is what we need for this day and age. The Wyoming Innovation Partnership has been.
Awesome. So with that, we will jump right into the value-added return on investment. So I shared with Erin an email, and I don't know, Erin, if you shared that with the group yet or not, but we have an executive summary of the value-added ROI that goes a little bit more into depth with the methodology and everything. But David Atland and Anders Van Sant at the, it's the CBEA at the University of Wyoming, which is the Center for Business and Economic Analysis. They calculated a return on investment for the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, and they've worked on it for, gosh, it was about a 6-month process of them meeting with all of the project teams, meeting with everybody that had metrics and all of the numbers and the outcomes to really understand and analyze the work that has been done across both phase 1 and 2 of WIP. And then they calculated the ROI by comparing the economic benefits and the costs. So as you can see here, the value added return on investment for the 5-year horizon is 690%. And so this really implies that the contribution to Wyoming's gross state product over the 5-year horizon is nearly 8 times what the budget of the WIP programs was considered in the report. And so additionally, there's tax revenue for the state of Wyoming. They did sub-county, county, and state combined, and that's estimated at approximately 38.6 million over the 5 years. And then there's also, that's approximately 87% of WIP expenditures. So the economic return to Wyoming is substantial, and it's significantly larger than what they could compare it to, which they did not compare the ROI to other similar projects or programs across the state. That was a difficult thing that they would have had to spend a lot more time on. But they did compare it to the rainy day fund that this funding could have been just left in. And so that typically gets about a 5% return on investment annually. And so if you break this down by every 5 years, then, I mean, it is a significant better investment than just have left it into that rainy day fund. So they also noted in their report that there were many alternative uses of the WIP funds that they were not able to analyze because they have impacts that were far beyond just the basic dollars to return on investment dollars. And so they identified these as intangible benefits that they were really unable to measure in the dollar amount. And these were some of the things that they, with the standard economic impact methodology, it really does define a very narrow definition of what economic benefits were. And they were very conservative in their approach to measuring those. And if they didn't feel comfortable with them, they identified them as something they weren't going to measure, and that's okay. But I think that these intangible benefits, to me, are things that we talk about a lot with WIP, and it's the better outreach. It's more educational opportunities and internships for our students and our families in Wyoming. It's improved research. It's reducing the out-migration of Wyoming youth. If we can provide them good jobs and good educational opportunities and then connect them with internships for those jobs, we have the better opportunity to keep them here in Wyoming. Improve communication and coordination between UW and the community colleges. And that's something that President Tyndall talked about in his video, and that we see as a huge improvement. And just, I think overall, it's the collaboration and how we work better together. I'm not going to read all of these, but I think that it was interesting to me because when they sent me the draft to review, and then we had a meeting to talk about the return on investment, David and Anders were both very open about not being able to measure everything, however, really identifying these key things. And they also said that they enjoyed talking to and meeting with all of the people that were involved in the WIP projects, because people were very excited about the work that was being done. They were excited about the collaborations that they were able to make, and they were excited at the progress that they were able to make. And we have another video. This one is from Gillette.
So historically, Gillette College has offered phenomenal current technical education programs, but their traditional long-term basis, 1-2 year associate's degrees, we've seen a huge need for shorter term. So the Wyoming Innovation Partnership has allowed the funding to stand up these short-term programs that just wasn't available prior to. Our industry partners want to hire folks from Wyoming because they know that those individuals are more likely to stay. So historically, July.
All right. So I don't know if you remember, if any of you were on the review last year, but we did something similar with the phase 1 report, and we identified some of the key metrics that were being measured for the Wyoming Innovation Partnership. And so these are collective metrics from phase 1 and 2, and this really outlines the engagement, the program completions, the programs stood up. That K-12 enrollment and the post-secondary enrollment, I think is awesome. The different training sessions, the community and industry partnerships that were highlighted in here, and then also some of the funding from outside sources. So I'm gonna pull up the phase, oh, wait, back to report. Can you see that? Is it sharing that correctly? Okay, great. All right. So this was also in the email and it is on the website as well. And I'm just going to run through this, kind of giving you an overview of how things are laid out so that you can dig in and read more as you have time and as you're interested. So really a large part of WIP and a large part of the work on my end and the project management team is collecting, tracking, and utilizing the data and the metrics really to gauge how we're doing, where we should continue to make investments, where we should, maybe tweak things. And each of the programs that have been funded by WIP, they're separated out into categories, and we'll look at that in a little bit, but they have monthly meetings with our project management team. And so they talk about their progress, they talk about hurdles that they have, they bounce ideas off of each other. And then they also report quarterly metrics and outcomes that have been identified that are associated with the work that they're doing and have been funded for. And so it really, we're kind of structuring it like a grant program, which allows us to have further, deeper conversations across, successes and across programs, and really identifying success stories and being able to tell those along with the metrics and the outcomes that we're tracking along the way. Another really awesome thing that we just learned, so we did kind of a follow-up at the end of phase 2 and the kickoff of phase 3, and really tried to understand, how the monthly meetings were going. Were there ways that we could adjust those? And one thing that we heard loud and clear from all of the different category groups was that they wanted to have more meetings with people outside of their categories to understand what else was going on within the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, and really have more collaboration, more conversations, and build additional relationships across the board. And so that to me is really exciting. We are going to look at how we restructure those. We're going to be highlighting some additional programs, and I'm actually hoping we're able to put together an in-person meeting in connection with the Governor's Business Forum. We're working on trying to get that planned so that we can kind of give an overview summary of each of the different categories, each of the different programs, let them share their successes, talk about their hurdles, and be able to build additional relationships as we work through this process together. So in this report, we started off kind of like we did with last year's report with a message from the governor, and then we dive directly into the return on investment. And then the key metrics, which you also just saw. And then we go category by category, and within these categories, so under digital infrastructure, we have these programs, the Data Hub, Software Development, School of Computing. And one thing I want to note is that some of these programs receive funding in phase 1, 2, and 3. Some of them were just phase 2 and they're still continuing into phase 3. And some of them that you see highlighted are new programs that they stood up an actual new educational program with the funding. And so we really tried to identify throughout this report just the key things within each of the programs. I also want to point out that we went by category, and we did the key metrics within each category, and those are at the bottom of each of the pages that outline the categories. We tried to make this more interactive. If you get into the report that is on the website, there's actually videos associated with the digital infrastructure programs that you can click on and watch. And then on here, the scan for more information code will take you directly to the website to digital infrastructure. And there's additional information on each of the programs in there. We had a hard time really narrowing down the volume of information into a readable report for phase 2. And so there's additional information about each of these programs, the success stories, videos, things like that on the website. As we work through, agriculture was a new program that was funded, or a new category that was funded in phase 2. And so all of these are fairly new programs, and they've seen great success. I also want to note that all the photos that are in the report are actually people within the WIP programming that allowed us to take pictures. And so these are real people working in these areas and learning through these programs. On our energy section, we go on to entrepreneurship. As you can see, there's some of these videos. They're not hyperlinked in this, but they are on the website.
Lauren, I have a question for you as you're going through these. What would you say, you know, because if you're a trustee watching this or someone, and you know, at the college wanting to communicate this to a policymaker or someone in your college region, what are some of the like key things to tell people about that you're finding people want to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the key things that we can focus on is the different categories that we looked at. And actually I will, I think I have a video next, but let's skip over that. I can, no, we'll go back. Sorry. But really looking at the categories and understanding that we're looking at key workforce needs across the state. And so these programs that were funded were addressing a specific workforce need that was identified through data. And that we've heard from industries that, you know, we're able to support the colleges being agile and really standing up these programs in a quick manner. The other thing that I think is important to understand, and we can talk about this individually or whatever, but there's successful programs and successful industry things that are happening and partnerships that are happening individual to each college. And those look different. It's hard to talk about WIP as a whole because there's everything from healthcare to agriculture to tourism and hospitality to manufacturing to internships. And so really finding out what those key areas are in your community, which you probably already know. I mean, Western Wyoming Community College is Powerline Tech program. They've got some CNA work that, you know, and so some of those are really good success stories to be able to tell that impact each community a little bit different, but directly impact the community and the industry partners. Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on Aaron's comments about for us trustees as we're talking to legislators and therefore you give a lot about information, a lot of numbers. You have the ROI expectations that the University of Wyoming, I guess, put together. I can anticipate a question that would kind of follow like this. Okay, I see all these expectations. What's the data that supports these ROIs? And I don't think I detected that.
Yeah, absolutely, Don. So when they calculated the ROI, they took the direct investment of those WIP dollars. And then they run them through an economic impact methodology. And really, it's looking at everything from jobs created to tax revenue created to even purchases. So if somebody had equipment that was purchased in the state of Wyoming, that's a direct impact of those dollars that were invested through WIP into the economy specifically of Wyoming. And then the other thing is that we are going to have the CBEA come along with us. We have a joint education committee presentation, and he's going to go into quite a bit of depth around the specific methodology. The summary that is included in the email, that actually outlines how they came up with the dollars as well, for that return on investment. But it's a number of different impacts, and it is the typical economic analysis benefit, cost benefit methodology is what they use.
If I may follow up, then, if we can get that in rather simple language that we can communicate to the representatives and the senators, that would be very helpful.
Okay, that sounds good. And I actually have a report that we broke down even what the university gave us to even simpler. And so we will be having that. It's not quite finished being reviewed yet, but we will have that for you. And I'll make sure Erin gets it and gets it out to everybody. Any more questions right now?
So Lauren, Erin, sorry I had to call in and wasn't actually able to get on the Zoom, but I'm sitting down here in Bags on my way to Savory. And whenever you sit here and you talk about the different programs at the different colleges, I think it would be beneficial for the trustees at the different colleges to have firsthand information by going and talking to the students at each of the locations on the programs that they have there, so that they have a better understanding of exactly what it is that these students are learning and how it's transforming the future workforce.
Thank you, Ron. I think that that's a really, really good example. You've had that example with the Powerline Technology Program, and we actually have a video. I didn't include it in this because we've talked so much about the Powerline Technology Program because it was really a big first win. And so I didn't include it in here, but there are stories from each of the colleges that we have videos for as well. And the students are excited to talk about it. The teachers are excited to talk about it. So I think that's a great option. All right.
And as a reminder for everybody, not only is it shared in the chat, it'll be in the follow-up email to everyone with the link to all of those videos. So you'll have not only the power line, but all of these great videos that Lauren is showing us today. So feel free to use them, promote them, share them. I think they're really, really well done.
And with that, we'll start this one.
We worked with the University of Wyoming's WIP Initiative. Our goal was to provide complimentary tourism training to our tourism industry here in Casper. We were able to bring in the Disney Institute out of Orlando, Florida. Disney is the Rolls-Royce of training, especially tourism and customer service training in our industry. So we were just so thrilled to be able to provide it and to provide it at no cost. Our hope is that the impact of bringing in the Disney Institute, that not only do we support our tourism industry here in Natrona County, but we also will nurture it and grow it, not only within the workforce, but also starting at the collegiate level within the Casper College programs. Tourism is our second largest industry in the state. There's just so many avenues for students who start the hospitality industry to be able to pursue a very successful and vibrant career. And we're just grateful to the WIP Initiative, but also to the WIP Initiative and to the University of Wyoming for letting us partner with them, not only to provide this training, but for all of the support that they've given us along the way.
All right, so let's talk about phase 3, because that was also just announced. So we received.
Sorry, may I ask a question? This is Jennifer from Central Wyoming College. First, I just want to commend you for the wonderful videos. That was all Kaylin marketing, correct?
It was, yes.
And so one question I have is, do you want us to be, I haven't been contacted, I'm the marketing director. Do you want us to be adding these videos to our own channels, to our YouTube station?
Absolutely.
Okay, so So
Yes.
Lauren, I'll have my, so I'll work with you on that. I have not been given these videos, but I'm happy to put them out through our networks.
No, that's great. And I didn't realize that you didn't have them. Are you on the strategic communications working group?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we can catch up later. I'll make sure that you have access to all of them. And they are on the YouTube channel that Erin will be sharing. So you'll have the website and you can pull them from there. And if you need help embedding them or anything from Kaylin, they can help with that.
Great. Thank you. Would be happy to get them out on our channel.
Of course, yes. And let us know if we can help with anything else, or if you have other things that you want to highlight, WIP specific, and we can have them come out and do additional videos and get additional shots and things too. So. All right, so phase 3, we received 15 million from the legislature this last year. And of that, 9.63 million has been awarded so far to 27 programs. The focus really moving into phase 3 was sustainability and solidifying the programs that we have currently going, making sure that they are sustainable without WIP funding in the future, recognizing that it was designed initially as a standalone one-time funding opportunity over 3 phases. So really, all 9 of the different categories that have been identified as workforce needs, which we'll look at next, received funding. There were a number of phase 2 programs that are continuing on, and either their contract started fairly late or they weren't able to spend all the money in phase 2, or some of them as well just received either 3 years of funding at the very beginning or 2 years of funding in the middle. And so there's a number of programs that did not receive funding, but are continuing on into phase 3, and will continue to be measured and things like that. So we did have one new program that was funded, and that was a nuclear program. And that was out of Western Wyoming Community College in partnership with the University of Wyoming, I believe, and a number of other partners. And then this is a screenshot of the website. And I just wanted to show you guys in the About tab, if you hover over that, you can access all of the phase 1. You can access the report for phase 1. You can access the report for phase 2 and explanation of both of them. Woo, I can't talk. And then you can also access a summary of the phase 3 funding, and it's broken down by category. It's broken down by programs within that category, and it kind of just talks about what the different programs are under the different categories. So all of this information is on the website. And these are all of the programs that have been funded by WIP that are continuing on into phase 3. Like I said, some of these did not receive additional funding, but they did have their the funding that is continuing on into phase 3. And then there are a number that did receive phase 3 funding. And like I said, just the one new program of nuclear under energy.
I'm Monica, and this is my husband Matthew, and we are the owners of Wind and Sage Candle Company, and all of our scents are inspired by our Wyoming home. We found out about the Bootstrap program, and they are the ones who offer a lot of help.
I never, for a minute, thought that I'd be pouring candles, but here I am, a cowboy, a rancher, a farmer, a father, and a candle man.
Those guys are some of my favorites just because they're so relatable. And I think I picked a wide array from a few different colleges of these videos just to give an example of how many different things are happening across WIP, how many different programs, how many different industries are being impacted, and the different stories that go along with each of them.
I'm Monica.
So like I mentioned before, Erin's going to share an email that it has multiple links in it, including a link to our YouTube site, which has all of these videos on it, And we're consistently adding more. If there are things going on within your colleges that you're excited about and you want us to be more tuned into and share success stories about, please let me know. I'm happy to get with our marketing team and get them to come out and do videos. They're very excited about covering all of the work that's being done. There's also a link to the website, which is this QR code as well, will take you directly to the website. And then it has a link directly to the phase 2 report. The college presidents are also going to be receiving hard copies of the report. So if you guys would like some hard copies, I think in the next 2 weeks, I'll have another shipment and be sending them out to everybody. And then there's also the executive summary for the WIP ROI report. And we will have an even more broken down, easier to discuss summary that is WIP branded on the website shortly. I'll make sure that Erin can share that with you guys. And then if there's any additional information that you would like on the specific programs, the website really is a good place to dig in and find that. If there's specific success stories that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me, your college president. You know, we're happy to share all of the successes that are going on to help you tell the story of what's happening in WIP and how it is impacting your communities. We are also working on updating the phase 2 summaries and then the what's next for phase 3 on the website. And so that's kind of midstream of being updated right now, but it will be done within the next couple of weeks. And I think that that's all that I have, Erin. I want to say thank you to all of you for supporting your colleges and their partnership within WIP, and all of the work that's being done. I think, like I said, we've come a long ways and we've had a lot of successes. So happy to answer any questions.
So Lauren, I'll start it off with questions. And I think I see, Dawn, did you have your hand up? Okay, you need to unmute. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question, unmute, and then I'll ask mine when you're done. We'll see if we have the same question.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Well, so Lauren, first of all, love it. You know, all of you, especially my trustees, when you've known my frustration over the last few years, particularly the first, you know, couple of asks in the legislature with what is WIP? How do we talk about it? How do we talk about the metrics? Lauren, this is delivered. So I am just so pleased to say that, you know, now we have tools in hand to go out and talk to people to show how it's been measured and the effectiveness that it's had. So this is really remarkable. And it's come just so far for all of us. The question that I have for you is, you know, it's August 14th. The primary is not too far away. I tend to look at the results of that primary as being one of the things that could put the WIP in danger, possibly, you know, changing over of political persuasion, whichever way things go. That seems to be a risk to me. What do you see as some of the big risks for the Wyoming Innovation Partnership moving forward and maybe sustainability?
Thanks, Erin. I think that I'm going to just dovetail off of what you just said and then go into a little more detail, but I think that you're absolutely right. And that's why we didn't award all of the funding to start with. The colleges were very prescriptive about what they were asking for phase 3. And I appreciate that greatly. And then we also, that's why we awarded just over 9 million instead of the full 15. We're kind of holding to see how things are going to go. And so we want to be able to continue with the sustainability of the programs that are running, make sure that they are sustainable and that none of them are going to go away because we know that their workforce needs. And so that's the number one goal as we move forward, is making sure that happens. After we get through the primaries, we will take a look at what happens. And then we'll kind of make a plan moving forward. So when we asked for 30 million during last session, and they gave us half of that, so for 1 year. And Joint Appropriation Committee, they wanted additional metrics and they wanted more updates before they gave a second year of funding. And so I think we have that now. Last year it was kind of hard. I mean, we put together a lot of good information, but it wasn't as much as we have now because a lot of the programs were just getting off the ground. We didn't have students enrolled yet. We didn't have, the industry partnerships were just being built and worked through. Programs hadn't started yet. So I think now we've got a lot more data and information to share with them. And so I think there is the intention to go back and ask for that second 15 million to finish off phase 3. But again, we'll see how, like, the direction and the process that we work through with that. I think that as we move forward, that there's been some really good conversations with the presidents around, what is the future of WIP? How do we structure WIP in a way that it can continue to support this work specifically? And so we've actually created 3 different working groups that came out of the Presidential Steering Committee retreat that happened in May. And we are just kicking off those meetings this week. And so really looking at strategic communications, how do we better share information? Where are things housed? That's one of the groups. Alignment is another one of the groups. And that looks at like alignment across the state. Where do we need to include workforce services, regional offices? What about economic development? What about business alliance? What does those things look like? And then the other one is scaling. And I think that overall, really seeing how do we set the groundwork so that we can scale these programs and these projects very quickly with minimal effort and kind of prepare for what the future might look instead of having to react as quickly as possible. And so those, like I said, those 3 work groups are kicking off this week actually, and have people from every single one of the colleges on them. And we will come forward to the Presidential Steering Committee with ideas and recommendations from those groups as to potentially how we want to move forward for the future of WIP. So, Erin, I hope that helped answer the questions.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it really just shows to me, the work that the group is doing. It's, we're just not relying on legislators to say, hey, how does this continue? Within the group, folks are really working hard to talk about sustainability. Quickly, I'll mention that WACCT was successful in submitting a presentation on the Wyoming Innovation Partnership at the ACCT Congress that's going to be held in Seattle in October. And so we're really excited. Director Shoenfeld will be there, President Tyndall, Trustee Erickson, who's here, Dr. Moritz with the commission, and myself. And we are all going to talk about these great successes, and probably that sustainable factor will be part of that conversation. But to be an example for our colleagues across the country is something I know we're all really excited to communicate. Trustee Erickson, what is your question?
Well, Lauren really kind of addressed the question that I was going to have. It had something to do with sustainability. And I don't know, 4 years ago when we all met at the governor's mansion, the trustees and the presidents, and the governor laid out his plan for the Wyoming Innovative Network. And then that grew into the Wyoming Innovation Partnership, which I think is a very good label to describe what we're doing here in Wyoming. And my question, I remember saying this to the governor back in those days, is okay, you're going to get this started. What's the sustainability? What's the future for the continuing funding? Well, he's done a pretty good job. The governor's office, Lauren, you've done a good job in getting phase 2 and phase 3 passed. Now we got the future to go to. But my question is really not a question. It's more or less giving a comment of, hey, we've done pretty damn well. And now we got to look to the future. And I got to get back to this one question I asked earlier. We need some data about results. Not only expectations, but results. And the more we can have that so that we can explain that to the appropriators and the legislature, the better.
Thank you for that, Trustee Erickson. And I want to share too that the Presidential Steering Group has talked about looking at federal funding opportunities to support WIP specifically. And there's a partnership with Colorado and Wyoming through NSF that potentially is going to be able to help pay for some of the programs that we already have stood up. And so we're looking at how we can infuse some other funding methods into WIP as well. And I think there's potentially some Economic Development Association, EDA funding that actually aligns really well. And so really kind of looking at a multi-pronged approach is what we're moving forward with and researching right now. So.
Lauren, another question that I might have is, and you and I have talked about this, and I know it's been talked about at the PSG level, but for the trustees here and others, you know, how does this tie in with what else is going on in the state? We talk a lot about the vision for, you know, the state's economic development strategy. We've got the Business Council out there. How does this tie in to that kind of work? And maybe the second part of the question would be, what can we do to help, you know, bridge gaps or connect people with this work?
Thank you, Erin. That's a great question. And I think as we look at the ecosystem across the board, and President Tyndall actually said it in the first video, he said, you know, higher education has a huge place to play in economic development. And I look at a number of the initiatives, the RIDE initiative, which is K-12 pathways, career pathways initiative that's going on. We look at the research and some of the work that the Business Council is doing on the Pathways to Prosperity, and it all ties together. And we're starting to see, I mean, you've got sleds, you've got the data that's able to be pulled through that. You've got, oh my gosh, there's another one that we're looking at, the Boots program and the Boots website, trying to really tie together, creating these pathways for students, making sure they understand what opportunities we offer in Wyoming to have these great educational opportunities and then go directly into the workplace. And then tying in our workforce services. So I think it's really, WIP to me is kind of the glue that's pulling all of these pieces together and trying to make sure that the right people are at the table, trying to help support communication and collaboration. And I think that really, that's really what we're looking at moving forward. I think that in our office, we're looking at where do we really tie things off for the last 2 years of the governor's administration. And so really, really honing in on how do we make the biggest impact and how do we really, really push things forward and solidify the work that's been done as we work through this.
Thank you for that, Lauren. And I'm going to repeat a question that I see in the chat from Trustee Salazar. On the WIP website, is there a chart or a diagram that shows the programs that are relative to the geographic areas that the colleges serve? Or is it more by the subject areas? Does that making sense?
It does. And I'm trying to remember, we do have a map somewhere.
Because I think I've seen one too.
Be in the phase 1 report. Yes. Okay. So if you're in the website, and I'm going to just share the link to this direct page, but if you're in the website and you go to About and go to phase 1 key metrics and then scroll down, there's a map. This is from phase 1. And so this is, I can actually update one of these and have them update it for phase 2 report as well. We didn't do one for the phase 2 report, but yep, there you go, Erin.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect.
And then in the website, it also under each of the programs, it does say what colleges are involved in those programs. I actually think it says that in the report as well.
And that little color coding is kind of neat how they did that. Yeah.
I'll ask Kaylin to update this map because I think that's a great point and it's a good tool.
So are there any other questions? I'm trying to look for hands or, Melissa, I see a question from you.
Not so much a question, but just excitement and enthusiasm. I think this is a great program, a great thing. Former business teacher at Green River High School, and I just know that students are clueless. So the more we can push these things forward and just bridge the gap between high school, and education after high school and moving into the workforce, I think students are really excited about this. Not all students at the high school level think they're college bound, but then when they see these different programs where they can have these educational opportunities and go right into the workforce, it is exciting, it's engaging, and it builds that pathway for them moving forward so that they can know where to go. So kudos to this. I think this is a wonderful program that really should continue to be funded as education changes and things look different moving forward. They really do need to look different moving forward.
Thanks,
Lauren. I think you have your next video speaker right there.
Yes.
Trustee Erickson, I see your hand up.
Here I am again. This is not a question. This is, I think, a comment and a request. The WIP is definitely moving forward in improving our workforce here in Wyoming. My concern is getting our students into school and addressing the cost of education. And WACCT has been looking at, are there ways in which we can reduce or at least stabilize the cost of education? So my request to Lauren and all the folks that she works with is to take that particular question is, how can we reduce the cost of education, higher education, for our students that are coming out of high school, or for adults, like obviously we got Wyoming's Tomorrow, Wyoming Works, and we got the Hathaway and all those things. But what are the kinds of things might the WIP people do to help reduce the cost of higher education in Wyoming? So I guess there was a question there.
Trustee Erickson, I think that having these conversations and looking at the ROI and the metrics that we have, the ROI is looking forward, obviously, and it's just an estimated return on investment. However, the metrics that we have for the number of programs stood up, the number of industry partnerships, the number of students involved across the state, I think are ones that we need to keep telling these stories. And I also think that pulling some of these students in, we have a Powerline Tech student that the governor talked about in his State of the State address. His name's Owen. He's from Star Valley, and he got part of his education paid for through, I think it's Lower Valley Electric, so that they could recruit him directly out of school. And he did an internship with them. I think telling those kinds of stories and then trying to figure out how do we couple that with, if we have industry support and we have things set up correctly with these technology and these new innovative programs, how do we make those more affordable? And I think tying that package together in conversation is something that we need to work towards. And I also think that WIP really, it shows that the colleges are doing great things. And it shows the impact of these programs and the agile programs that have been stood up very quickly in response to industry need. That's what community colleges are supposed to do. And we are doing it very well in the state of Wyoming. So I think building that trust with the colleges or with the legislators will help with that. But I'm happy to be a part of that conversation. I'm also will have conversations within our office around how do we look at that in maybe an out of the box way.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
We love thinking outside the box, so I appreciate that. And Lauren, I think with that question, Dawn and Lauren, your response, we're touching on, you know, these partnerships with industry as well across the state. Several of these programs, of course, do have input from industry, some investment from industry, and that's an important story that we need to tell as well, to particularly the legislators, right? But it goes hand in hand with the great scholarship opportunities that the state has funded. You know, if students are going and receiving a Wyoming Works Scholarship, or a Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship, you know, these are the programs that are high need, high demand workforce focused. So these are the programs that they're going into. And so it all goes together, kind of comes full circle. But I love how the story really kind of unfolds. Is there an opportunity to tell it maybe a little bit better? I think always, right? And so any ideas on how we can do that? You know, Lauren, I look forward to watching you in front of the Joint Education Committee. I'm going to include that in the email as well. So tune in Casper on the, I think it's the 29th. And you can watch online as well. So let's see, we've got about 7 minutes left. Are there any other questions that we can explore? Trustee Clark.
Hi, I just have maybe a comment. Lauren, thank you. I did read through that report and I didn't get to look at all the videos, but I think something that we've learned as trustees is not only our industry and business partners, but our students, after they leave and get their jobs, can attest to how they got those jobs, those high paying, high demand. And students make a big difference to those legislators.
I also think that you guys having the information and being able to have those conversations with the legislators makes a big impact as well. I mean, you guys work together consistently and they should support our higher education system. So I appreciate your guys' willingness to have the conversations and to want to have additional information to share with them.
Well, this is high value information, Lauren. So thank you for that. We'll continue to share it out. I know as things develop with the approach of the legislative session, if something else comes along, I know you'll communicate that. I'll do my best to share it with everyone as well. So we'll just continue to make sure everyone's in the loop. We'll get ready for Seattle at ACCT. And then we'll just continue the good work. WACCT is really focused on telling the story of the students this year. And obviously, I think that's a really easy job and it's a fun job. So we're excited to share that with our legislative friends. But Lauren, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for being with us, and everyone else, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.